Hi there. I will start with Happy New Year. It always occurs to me that that's what we say, right? That's our phrase, Happy New Year. And then on the other hand, when we usually write our little, kind of cliched list of what we wish each other in the new year, I rarely hear the word happiness. I don't say, hear people say, I wish you happiness. So people wish you health, fair enough. People wish you good luck. People wish you success. But I do think, and it's been said often, that we here in the United States undervalue just plain happiness. I went to hear Deepak Chopra a number of years ago, and he came out at the Hollywood Bowl, and the first thing he said was, I try to remind particularly Americans all the time, more than other cultures, to remember that one of the purposes of life is to be happy. And it's true that in my experience, as I travel around the world, and it has nothing to do with rich or poor, I've been in tribal areas all over Africa and South America and seen deeply happy people. I mean, there are stories of the Kikuyu tribe and the Maasai tribe in Africa and in Kenya, where people leave the tribe, they go to Nairobi to study, they go to Oxford in England, they go far, far away, and often they come back to that tribal living. I mean, literally walking around with sandals and leading a cow by the nose all day when they have an erudite background now, they have an education, and sometimes they go back to their tribe just to bring medicine and education back as to what they've learned in England and Nairobi and whatnot. But I've heard a lot of them say, and you can read the stories of tribal people who say, I went back to be happy. That's where I was happiest, where people are part of a community. And it seems that that's one of the bottom line caveats of being happy, is to be part of your community. Somehow you're helping, other people are helping you, you're not in this life alone, and there's a feeling of richness about that. Now we could split the hairs and go down and say, well, what's the difference between joy, joyfulness, happy, happiness, and being content, contentment? And to my mind, contentment is the most pervasive, subtle, deep concept of those three. When you're content, it's not because something that day happened that made you burst with joy, that made you really happy when you woke up the morning and you got that news. Contentment is a way of being. It happens on a deep cellular level, contentment. And often there are studies done by sociologists to observe infants. And we don't need to go to the place to say if someone's in pain, if someone's being abused, if someone doesn't have enough food to eat. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about for those of us who have a lot, who can get through the day and not being hungry or thirsty or not having a roof over our heads. Content is perhaps even something genetic. They see an infant who just has a content chemistry, who is lucky to be born with a smile for each sunrise. I feel lucky that way. I feel I have a happy chemistry, or shall I say a content chemistry. And then you build on it as you age. You find out what your ethics are, your morals, who your friends are. You build your community, and you start to feel content within that. And to my mind, I've read several from different, religious tracts and philosophical tracts. People disagree about that next stage, which is happiness and joyfulness, happy and joy. And some people feel that joy is also deep-seated. You are just joyful. You're joyful with your life. You're joyful with your circumstances. And happy is more temporary. It's are you happy today? Are good things happening to you in your life that can make you happy? Are unfortunate things in your life at the moment that are making you unhappy? I don't know. And there are other people who feel just the other way around. But I want to check in with you guys today as to what happiness really is. I don't think it's connected necessarily with money. I'm sure, like you, I know a lot of very wealthy people who are terribly unhappy, and I know people who have very few material goods who are just plain happy all the time. Just every day is a joy. So what are you guys thinking out there? And Gabby, you guys, sometimes I like to turn the camera around to say hello. There's Gabby.
Hello.
That's Gabby Fish. Bonnie's not with us today. Uh-oh. I lost my my steady.
There we go. Oh.
So anyway, the next thing we're going to do is let me hear from you. Let me hear from you as to, your definitions of happy, what makes you happy. And I bet you anything I'm going to hear from a lot of you about community and friendships, not just what's happening in your, chiseled out private life. Gabby?
Yep. So Karen Gidley Mulvaney says, being connected to the fabric of community, starting with family, then to neighborhood, town, schools, library, then outward to state, country, world. Happiness comes with doing things outside ourselves, making meaning of our time here.
Karen, well put. Very, very well put. Yeah. I think another situation that's clear for us is in aging. My mom was in assisted living for Alzheimer's for 8 years. And not only did my sister Bonnie and I visit, somebody was with her every single day for those 8 years. Somebody she knew, a family member, and I consider Bonnie that as well. But we, as you know, and I'm sure you have that situation, met so many people there, so many elderly people who had nobody ever once visited. So the staff was terrific. It was largely a Latino staff, and a big, standard ethic among them was there go I. One day I will be in that position, and will somebody be kind to me? Will somebody reach out and hold my hand and take me to dinner and sit with me instead of having me eat alone? But we know the statistics about elderly people who do better, live longer, happier, keep their physical well-being together when they're part of a community. And when they're not, when they're alone and kind of making it up on their own every day, they go down faster. Karen, that was beautifully put, community. And I like that you threw in library in there. Who else, Gabby?
Christy Reeves says, I live with deep depression and find the only way I can be in a better state is by getting outside myself. Focus on itchers, help others, be with others, and live and love others.
Yeah, Christy, well, good for you. And it's hard for me to understand depression because, as I mentioned before, I think I just got lucky and I got a happy DNA. But I certainly, my niece is one. I certainly have known lots of people like you who just it's not a matter of will. It's not a matter of a bad attitude. It's a matter of a chemistry. And so for you to, grapple with that and understand that you can make, your own steps toward making yourself happy, toward combating that depression and reach out is fantastic. A lot of people go down with depression and reach out to meds only, but you're taking those proactive steps to surround yourself and be part of things. Good for you.
Carrie, Mrs. Boss says, hello Diana, I've changed my emotional health through changing my eating lifestyle. No more omnivore, I'm only plant-based now. Would love for you to join our Facebook group, Plant-Based Nutrition. Love your insight.
Oh no, how am I gonna switch from being a carnivore? How am I gonna do that? No, but listen, besides just plant-based, just eating in general, we also know, not that we're always good at it, and I'm no angel all the time, but we know that a lot of sugars and dairy and heavy, meat products can burden down the system, make us feel heavy, and I don't just mean in the way of weight, but just make our, they study the what do they call it, the iris of the eye, and people who eat a lot of dairy and meat and non-plant-based products have a film over their irises, and not only do they not see as well, but they're in a fog. So the clearer you are with your nutrition, I'm not going to say the happier you are. That would be a little too facile, but I'm sure it puts you in a better position to accomplish your goals and get through the day with a little bounce in your step.
Perfect. Ricky Nelson says happiness is whatever brings you fulfillment. It could be jumping from a plane, it could be going to church, it could be eating, drinking, swimming, but yes, it's a temporary state. You can't be happy when you're sleeping. We also have sadness, but we find happiness too. Life is an emotional roller coaster.
You know, that's philosophical, Ricky. I like it. The one point in it that sort of raises my curiosity is we can't be happy, you say, when we're sleeping. I'm not sure about that. You know, I'm not sure if we studied neurologists, you know, who hook us up to all kinds of electrodes while we're sleeping. If people who are happy when they're awake, when they're conscious, I'm just curious. I'm not arguing this. I'm just curious if it might be true that those are people who are indeed happy when they're sleeping, that they sleep in a very content way, that they get a deeper REM sleep. Maybe, I'm just throwing this out there, you know, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of happiness or unhappiness when people sleep, depending on what they are when they're awake. I'd be curious to know that. But the rest of your list is right on.
Wendy Fontaine says, the thing that made me happiest recently, seeing the sense of pride and accomplishment on my daughter's face when she made the junior swim team last week. She was afraid to try out because she thought she wasn't going to make it. I knew she could, and she did.
Fantastic. Yeah, it does make us happy to see others. You know, I don't have my own children, but I've got my nephew Tim and my niece Jennifer Julia. But I tell you, when that Tim, he's 39 years old now, he's making a documentary on the most recent genius finding among astrophysicists in the world. As a matter of fact, I got to be with him just recently when I was in Stockholm. He was there for the Nobel Prize winner. Some of his people in his film have won this year's or last year's Nobel Prize for Physics. So when I see him happy in his marriage, happy running the trails, happy making his films, it makes me happy for sure. So congratulations on your daughter's success with the swim team. Very cool, Wendy.
Kathy McManus Whole Sapful says, I'm making a bigger effort to create more personal happiness through being more productive and contributing more to life. I've also found I'm much happier with less news.
Less news, you boy. A lot of people say that these days. I'm of that faction that wants to keep in touch closely with the news. You know, I'm a bit afraid and concerned with the current president. I'll just leave it at that. So I'd rather know everything, what he's up to and what the White House is up to and what's next. Are we going to have to roll up our shirt sleeves and fight to keep Roe v. Wade, you know, and not have the new Supreme Court turn that over? I just want to be apprised, but I agree with you, it's tough, and I have a lot of friends, well-educated friends, who just would rather, it doesn't mean they want to be ignorant, but they would rather, it just doesn't make them feel good, you know, to keep up with some of this daily negative nonsense. So they don't listen to as much news and as much social media as they used to. So I hear you on that.
Joe Sparks says, happiness is a group of friends who believe in me, who will listen to me as I challenge the fears and doubts I got by being disrespected and devalued as a poor person growing in this country. I'm not alone now. My tears are being heard. I'm thriving and have built a good life for myself. I teach yoga and fitness for a living.
Joe, that sounds great. And, you know, just to hear you say, you know, that you had been devalued by growing up poor, you know, as though, I mean, we could make a list of the poor people in America who, you know, by the bootstraps like you know, wound up being a yoga teacher and a fitness instructor and all kinds of positive things. And you know, climbed out of poor beginnings to make something of yourself. And it makes me sad when I hear, you know, you say, when I surround myself with a group of friends who believe in me. Imagine the people who have no friends, And it's not because they're not likable people, but sometimes it's not easy. You work hard, you work a couple of jobs, or you're raising kids by yourself, and friends can be a luxury rather than what we all, most of us, Gabby and I and Bonnie and you, Joe, know as everyday life. And that always kills me. A person who has a number of good, solid friends and somebody who has none. Can't we just, take one over there and make that the new friend for that guy over there? Anyway, Joe, congratulations to you for making something yourself and finding happiness. You made it. You made it happen. Happy New Year to you.
Susan Nardi says, happiness for me is an internal choice I make daily about being grateful for family and friends.
Susan, hi Susan, first of all. I hear that. I think there's a conscious choice. So again, I'm not going to comment on people who, truly have a body chemistry that is dark and leads toward depression. There's a lot of that. There's a huge incidence of that worldwide and certainly in this country. And now you should address your chemistry just like you would for a thyroid issue, or some purely physical issue. But I do believe there's an element of will in happiness. You can walk out the door and forget that day, not give yourself that affirmation. You know what? Everybody I run into today, I'm going to have a little joy in my voice and a gleam in my eye to say, how are you? Just walk down the sidewalk and give away, how you doing today? So I love that you make that a conscious choice. Be grateful, be happy, and remember it. I think that's what I was trying to say with the Deepak Chopra story a minute ago, and the Dalai Lama has said that often. He has to remind people to be happy, as the Jamaicans, do us. Don't worry, be happy. So Susan, I hear you. I think some days I'm in the middle of a day and I say, why did I deal with that way? Why didn't I go into that situation ready to think the best of people and be grateful for what's coming out of the situation and just plain be happy. I like it, Susan.
Mary Larson Volp says, sometimes happiness to me is as simple as me meeting my step goal, my Fitbit, and other times it's as big as making my sales goal for the year. To me, I would say, I guess happiness equals met goals.
Yeah, goals. Yeah, well, it's true, isn't it? Whether they're sort of personality goals. I want to be this more. I want to be friendlier, let's say. I want to be happier as I walk out the door every day. Two big goals that you're saying. They're personal, actual goals that you've set out, and you can in an empirical way measure them, and then you hit them. And I know that feeling, and I've finished my my occasional 1,000 burpees I talk about all the time. I walk out of that gym, I'm tired, I'm a little shaking, I'm dripping wet, but I walk out of that goal with a smile on my face and a little giddy up in my step, a little happy giddy up.
Dina Rouse says, being present and staying curious all help with maintaining happiness. When we are thinking of the past or future, worry, etc., it's hard to be happy.
Yeah, Dina, I like that too. Being present is a good one. You feel that you're in your life, whether you're eating or watching television or driving or a number of the things that we do that don't take our full-on conversation, like concentration, like a conversation would. A lot of times we just go on absolute automatic pilot, unconscious. We're not in it, we're not awake, so we don't feel alert, meaning we don't feel alive. There's a lot of that. I can cop to a lot of that in my life, and I agree with you. I think I put that down as a definition of my happiness is when I'm most engaged in the moment, whether it's a book I'm reading or a person I'm talking to or a play I'm seeing, or the stars I'm looking at night. When I'm in it and in that present, I do feel more alert and awake and alive and happy, content. Nice one. I like that, Dina.
Marty Wolf Williams Wilson says, happiness to me is acceptance. I have spent much time and energy looking for something instead of accepting reality in this moment. Thank you for your accomplishments and your continuing caring of others.
Yeah, Mary, that's a good one too. Acceptance. You know, I find as I get older, I'm constantly coming upon fine lines. You know, balance. When I was younger, in my 20s and 30s, and maybe even in my 40s, I was very, you know, one-sided about things. I've got to drive. If I'm going to be successful and achieve that, I've got to drive toward it. And there isn't any room in that drive for grace or acceptance. It's all, you know, beat yourself up if you didn't do it, or if you didn't do enough toward it. And instead of finding some acceptance that, well, maybe there was, you know, a bona fide reason that you couldn't get at least that day's worth of purposeful activity done. Acceptance is, you know, is a wonderfully compassionate word. I like it. You know, you guys are coming up with some beautiful tangents that lead us down the road to joy, happy, content. A couple more.
Here's another good tangent from Keith Fenton Miller. It says, happiness for me would be you and Oprah on the presidential ticket for 2020.
Oh, Keith, trust me, you would not be happy. If Trump is ill-informed and unable to do the job, I'm not talking about personality now, but just in terms of his knowledge, I am woefully lacking in knowledge on American political history and, God forbid, worldwide, the world stage. If I were to sit down and debate, let's say, Hillary Clinton on, you know, or Rex Tillerson at this moment on what's happening worldwide and, you know, what sort of policies we have in place, I would... It would just be, it would be an embarrassingly ignorant moment. So you don't want me in there. Oprah, maybe we do. Although, you know, remember Oprah years ago when she's been approached about running for office, has often said that she feels she gets more done, that she inspires our population at large to rise up, to read, to be involved politically, to do the right thing, to find a moral compass. She's done all that outside the world of politics, and she's always said before that she doesn't like that slow-moving cog. She doesn't like being in the world of Washington, where it takes years and years and years and all the fighting, you know, across the aisles to get something done. I personally, not that I'm a good friend of Oprah's, I know Oprah a little bit, I personally doubt she would run. I just think that's she's led in her life, and she continues to be this shining star of so many things we admire, and reaches out to the people the people who don't have, you know, as much. I mean, look what she said last night on the Golden Globes. She just quickly said, I was in Milwaukee with my mother, whose job was cleaning other people's homes. This is the background Oprah came from, and that is a population Oprah has credence with and still speaks to and helps rise up to chase their dreams. So I might be wrong. I'd vote for Oprah tomorrow, but I doubt she's going to run. And again, Keith, you can trust me to say that you do not want me in Washington.
Deborah Ann says, you are such an inspiration. Happiness is wanting what you have, looking on the bright side of life. That's happiness to me. Happiness is being loved and loving in return.
Deborah, I don't usually use this word, even though I will stop to say it's a shame, because I'm an atheist, so I don't use, bless you, or God willing. I don't use those kinds of terms, but it's a shame I can't use amen, because outside the religious world, it's always used in a religious context. But to my mind, if you say something like you just said, to be loved, to love others, to make that conscious decision, I want to say amen. And amen, I only mean it by way of a definition of, I couldn't say it better. Whatever you say, if you've said something that makes absolute sense to me, like the Mary Oliver line I'm always quoting, this, what are you doing with this one wild and precious life of yours? Well, who could ever put that particular concept? Are you looking at your life? Are you looking at every moment you live and breathe? and you never get to do it again. You only get to do this once. And how precious is it? All of us are living a different life, but each one of us has a precious life, one precious life. Mary Oliver has said it so perfectly, that particular concept. To my mind, it can't be said better. You can't find better words in the English language to say it. So I say to Mary Oliver, Amen, Mary. And I say to you, Deborah, and what you just said about, say it again, Gabby. Can you read Deborah's again?
Yes.
Because it's good. All of you have been great today. I'm going to take all this to heart and go back and read a number of them later.
Happiness is wanting what you have, looking on the bright side of life. That's happiness to me. Happiness is being loved and loving in return.
There you go. Living on the bright side, loving and being loved. You know, Hillary Clinton, in her book before the current one, the book she wrote before the last campaign, you know, she said some line in it, a kind of throwaway line, at the end of one chapter. It was something like, yeah, I've been Secretary of State. I've been Senator of the great state of New York. I've lived in the White House for 8 years with my husband and president. I could go on and on. I graduated, you know, Phi Beta Kappa from Wellesley College. I spoke at the college graduation. She said, if we could forget about all that, you know, I can sum it all up. My life is, I have loved and I have been loved. That's all I need to say. So, amen, Hillary, and amen to you, Deborah. Well, listen, shall we call it for the moment, Gabby? I got to go do some stuff. But I thank you so much for checking in. I wish you happiness. I wish you joy. And I wish you contentment in 2018. All of you. Bye.